Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Sci-Fi Sisters podcast, where we give you our point of view. I'm Tamia Harper, and I'm joined today by my sister, Yvette Blackman-Tom.
Hello.
Hello, sis. That still always gets me.
Thank God we don't do this in the morning.
Oh, my God.
My voice is like...
My voice is like I smoked like 18 packs of cigarettes.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
That's right, honey. It's the Sci-Fi Sisters.
Oh, my goodness.
I can't even do it.
You gotta hurt yourself.
I did.
Oh, my God.
Okay.
Oh, man.
All right, I'll be serious now.
Okay.
It'll be serious. Gonna be sirs.
Sirs?
Okay, sirs. Okay. So we got a fun show. It's a show that I'm happy to bring to you guys because we are just coming off of the heels of Trek Talks 5. Yay!
Yay!
And congratulations, Yvette. Yay!
Thank you.
She worked really hard on that, y'all.
Yeah, we
really
all
hard.
did. Yeah.
So Trek Talks 5 is produced by Trek Geeks, our podcast papas, and they enlisted all sorts of help to put this show on. And this year was us, Yvette, on behalf of us.
Well, we're producers also. So there's 5 producers. Yeah.
5 producers, right.
Mm-hmm.
5 producers and Mission Log.
Mm-hmm. Well, Roddenberry Podcasts.
Roddenberry Podcast, not Mission Log itself.
Trek Movie. Sci-Fi Sisters. Trek Geeks. Am I missing one?
That's 4.
4. Guess it's 4. I don't know what I got 5 from.
I don't know.
I'm really wow.
Well, you're missing JB.
JB's the talent.
Yeah, he's the talent.
Him and Bonnie, they're the talent. But he's the one that he's the one with Trek Geeks that started the whole thing. So it's definitely and JB was on the board of Hollywood Food Coalition, and his wife Daly went there and started. She actually started the what is it called? The lunch bag program. That they still have to this day. So they used to be on the board, and now they're just partners with them, and we love those guys at Hollywood Food Coalition. They've become real partners, and we've converted people to be Star Trek fans and everything. So it's it's really good.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And the Trek Talks telethon, if you are unfamiliar with it, it's been, like I said, this is the 5th one. And it's basically like a telethon to do good in the vein of the old Jerry Lewis telethons. And it's a virtual thing that happens, and it's an all day long affair. And it's so cool. Like, it's 8 straight hours of programming, and it's really like a Trekkie's delight.
It is. It is. It's a live show. It's a really, and all kinds of things happen right before the show. We do live panels. We do pre-recorded panels. So it's a delight. It's an absolute delight.
It is a delight. And like, the talent is always really amazing every year. Like, I mean, it's just so cool. Like, I remember the first year it was during pandemic times. And so like, all of us were just sitting at home anyway, and even though Sci-Fi Sisters, we participated in it, I was there the whole day, like on my keyboard, chatting away in every panel, like,
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's an event now. It's an event to be looked out for. So, and those, those shows, they live online on YouTube, so you can go back and catch the ones that you missed. If you missed it this year, you can go back and watch it, and it's still not too late to donate.
No, it is not. You can text TREK, TREK, to three, five, five, five. Yeah, you could do that. Yeah.
I forgot about the three.
You're right. Always, I always do. It's all those
I,
fives,
I
right?
forgot about the three, and then I only did like four fives at the first time, and I was like, or two fives
Two
or something.
fives,
I
yeah.
did two fives, and
Yeah. Three
anyway,
nickels, three nickels.
triple nickel, triple
Triple
nickel.
nickel, people.
I
Triple.
just turned double nickels this year.
Ooh, you
Yeah,
did.
I did.
Oh,
Hmm.
wow. Got the halfway, the 50
Yes,
hair.
girl.
Okay. Wow. You're a real grown up now.
It sucks.
It really does. Because it's all the time. It never gives up.
Oh my God, it sucks so hard.
It does.
I remember being younger and like with before I had massive responsibilities in the world and I had like a bullshit job and I was getting off of the bullshit job or playing hooky from the bullshit job or something and like looking at people on like in traffic and
Mhm.
like looking at how friggin' miserable everybody looked, right? And I was like,
Exactly.
I swear, I'm never gonna look so miserable and have my jaw clenched so tight. I'm like, dude, that is so me, like every day in the
My jaw
traffic.
hurts.
Gotcha, right? Like my teeth are grinding. I'm like, oh, thank God for Star Trek in my life. Thank
Yeah.
God for my fandom. Thank God
Mhm.
for the Sci-Fi Sisters book club, which just
Mhm.
brings me no end of joy. Like thank God for my geeky ass friends and like,
Mhm.
the fact that we just get to live a lot of our brain space and energy and time in a really positive way,
Mhm.
you know.
It helps a lot. It
Oh my
does. Yeah.
God. I would be insane without this. Straight up.
Oh my God.
So, all right, so I've digressed, but
Tangent, tangent, tangent.
So today we're bringing you the panel that I had the honor of moderating for Trek Talks 5, which was a panel on the Voyager episode of Critical Care,
Mm.
which was a phenomenal episode of Voyager that was basically when the doctor gets kidnapped
Mhm.
and taken to a planet where healthcare is decided according to your usefulness to society and your stature in society. And we thought it was a really relevant panel to discuss at Trek Talks. And for today, it's highly relevant as we look at the prices of healthcare skyrocketing in this country and basic services. And like, even if you're employed and making six figures, you might be
Hmm.
hard pressed to get some good care.
Yep.
We thought it was super relevant. And the cool thing about this panel was that I got to do it with some amazing people. So, I mean, I feel super fortunate that I get to do what I get to do. Because I never would have thought that I would get to talk to the writer of an episode like this, or one of the main actors, or an incredible doctor. So I got to speak with Ken Biller,
Mhm.
who was became a showrunner for
Mhm.
Star Trek Voyager, which was really cool. And he was the responsible for the story for this episode. And he's a writer and a producer and a director. He's amazing. He was really cool to talk to and really like quick and smart man. Like I really
Yeah.
enjoyed having a
Yeah.
conversation with him.
Mhm.
And then our beloved Bob Picardo, uh, our beloved doctor
Uh,
himself.
I love
Uh,
that
that
guy.
that man is amazing. Like he's so genuinely sweet,
He is.
and
He really is. Yeah. He loves Star Trek too. I love that about him.
right?
And I do want to give him a shout out because not only did he do this panel, but he helped us with, are you giving me? Oh, okay.
Sorry, sorry.
He helped us with all kinds of guests. He was just, and he's always been that way. He loves Hollywood Food Coalition, the Trek Talks What We Do. He actually raised money on the ship for us also. So, he's
Yeah, on the
just
cruise. Yeah.
on the cruise, yes.
Hmm.
But yeah, he's wonderful. He really is. He's a wonderful human. I like him a lot.
Yeah, yeah. I've gotten a a lot of respect for him.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah, like he's not one of those cast members who um, is like feels like they're walking on air, like, above you,
Oh no, no, not at
he's
all.
very approachable
Yeah,
and very genuine and just like a nice human being, like a really cool human
he
being.
really is. He gets it. He gets
Yeah, he
what
gets
he
it.
gets his role. He gets what he brings to the table. He
Hmm.
understands the fans. He understands what Trek means to us and what it means to him. You
Hmm.
know, I think it means the same thing to him that it means to us. So that's
Yeah.
key. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then the last person, the last but certainly not
Not
least,
least.
one of our favorites, Dr. Elizabeth Hudson.
Hmm.
We got to speak with a real doctor about this episode, which was super cool, which both Ken and Bob really liked too.
They really did. They
And but
appreciated it. Yeah.
she's not just a real doctor. Let me give you her bona fides. Um, she's the regional physician chief of infectious diseases at Kaiser Permanente, Southern California. She's the chief department of infectious diseases, Kaiser Permanente, Panorama City, and the hospital epidemiologist, chief infection control officer, Kaiser Permanente, Panorama City. That is only a little bit,
Mm, mm,
a
mm.
few of her titles. That's not even half of her titles of the things that she's actually heading and chief of and director of
Hmm.
right
Hmm.
now. I mean, she's amazing. And, we're always going to big up our sisters who are doing some stuff. And
Yeah.
not only is she a sister who's doing some stuff, but she's a huge Trekkie.
Yeah, she is. Her and her husband. I want to give him a shout out too, because she
Yeah.
definitely made mention that he's a bigger Trekkie than she
Yeah,
is.
right, right. So it's like we got that Trekkie family going over
There
there.
you
So
go.
yeah. So that's the setup of the panel, and I hope you guys enjoy it. It was a real pleasure and a true honor for me. It always is anytime I get to do a little bit in service of Hollywood Food Coalition. So enjoy, you guys. We'll see you on the other side. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Trek Talks 5. I'm Tamia Harper, one of the Sci Fi sisters. We have a great panel here today. I'm joined by some amazing people. Before we get to our panel, I want to remind everybody to please, please, please donate for us. You can go to www.givebutter.com/Trek Talks, or you can use the QR code right on your screen, or you can text Trek, all caps, TREK 5355. Okay, so those are the ways that you can donate. Here we go. I am so honored to be on this panel right now, to be helping with this panel. We're talking about the episode of Voyager, Critical Care, and it was covered by this man right here, Ken Biller. He's a writer, producer, director extraordinaire. We also have joining us our one and only beloved doctor from Star Trek Voyager and also reprising his role in Starfleet Academy, Bob Picardo. Thank you so much for coming on. And we are graced by the presence of one of my favorite people on the face of the earth. She's the epidemiologist and infectious diseases control maven. She is amazing. She is Dr. Elizabeth Hudson. Welcome to the show and the panel.
Thanks for having us.
Yes.
Thanks. I'm glad you guys could be here.
And it's a pleasure. My wife, who is herself a real physician, would be delighted that we have a real physician on this panel.
I love it.
You just play one on TV, Bob.
Understood. And my wife, she's had enough of fans coming up to me and asking me for medical advice when she's standing next to me.
So this episode was in season 7 of Voyager, Critical Care, episode 5, I believe, if that's correct. And, the premise of the episode is that the doctor is kidnapped, and he's kidnapped and taken to a society where medical care and the quality of one's medical care is dependent upon their social status. Correct? Did I sum that up well?
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I mean, I rewatched. I admit, full disclosure, I rewatched the episode this morning. I probably haven't seen it in 25 years, so I would say that that is a very good description of what we did all those years ago.
Like Ken, I just rewatched it myself and was delighted with it. First of all, the quality of the guest stars in the show, and the fact that it's just really a really good story, well told, and classic science fiction, in that it takes a really important, issue of the day and puts it in our imaginary future. So that I was delighted with it. I even liked my performance, which was shocking. But I think it's a great episode to have a conversation about, especially at this moment in time.
Absolutely.
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree.
I will say my husband is a bigger Trekkie than I am. And when I told him I was going to be on this podcast, he was like, oh my God. So he has all the DVDs. We pulled one out, and I definitely saw this a long time ago, definitely, but I said, it was even more prescient, kind of given where we are as a country now in terms of what it really shows, kind of the then future, actually kind of present, that we're all living in terms of kind of how medicine is actually given and done in this country, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little frustrating, to be honest. I find myself watching it thinking, oh, we thought this was a big issue 25 years ago, and now it's still a big issue. I mean, it's not exactly subtle. Let's be honest. Like, I don't give myself any kudos for, coming up with something subtle. It's sometimes as Bob says in the best science fiction, we're contemplating our own society or our own possible futures. And sometimes it's a little more nuanced. I think we did an episode that was quite literally about rationing healthcare at a time when people were talking about rationing healthcare from different sides of the aisle. So it's both gratifying that it's still resonant, and also I think a little bit sad and frustrating.
Absolutely. Can I ask you a question about that? When you were writing this episode, was the germ, how long before we saw this episode did the germ of this idea present itself to you? Because was it something that had been kicking around in the back of your head and you're like,
yeah, probably. I mean, listen, part of the as Bob would know very well, some of the challenge of writing on Star Trek is, you're sitting in your room and you're bashing your head against the wall thinking, what can we do that hasn't been done on some other iteration of Trek, or that we haven't done ourselves, or that we can sort of put a new spin on. So we're always talking about stuff and talking about contemporary issues. I can't pretend to remember all of the discussions. What I do remember, which is unusual about this episode, is that I was set to take over as the head writer in season 7. And I did something that we hadn't ever really done before, which was right before season 7 started. We were finishing up season 6, and I had identified 3 or 4 stories. And I said, let's try to get ahead of ourselves. And I was also looking to maybe hire some new writers. So this was one of, I think, 3 or 4 stories that Rob Doherty and I wrote the story together, and then we farmed it out to a writer who then ended up to write the teleplay, who then ended up coming on staff. And the reason we gave that writer the episode to write is that he actually was a medical doctor and had been a medical doctor. But it was Rob and I that kind of came up with this idea of this planet where medical care was rationed. And I should also say, not just to suck up to Bob, but we were always looking for doctor episodes to write, because they were the most fun, because his character was the most fun to write. So we were always looking for ways we could put him in a new situation.
I found it interesting, and I had kind of misremembered one aspect of the show. At least in this imaginary future, this society is rationing medical care for the benefit of society as a whole, not for shareholders. So that's one major difference, and why we are in a much worse situation than we're positing in this future, because we're rationing healthcare, basically for people to make money off of, not for the sort of generalized concept that all of society will benefit if we save this particular person who's a genius in water reclamation or whatever. Mm-hmm. So that was an interesting side note. We were we were actually a kind of softballing that, Ken.
I think that struck me as well, and I think that's part of was always part of Trek, which was to me, I think it's also just part of good writing, which is, can you make the villains such as they are not just twirling their mustaches and they're evil and we're just going to give healthcare to the rich people? So it was, how could we sort of take it and interpret it through a sci-fi lens, this kind of futuristic lens, where we could give our villains, let's call them that, a point of view where they had a rationalization that the reason they were doing this was it was benefiting society. I mean, there's some eugenics wrapped up in that too, right? Like the smartest people are the most important people, and let's make sure they survive, and the other ones, well, if they don't, it's okay. But I think that's right. So in some sense, we soft pedaled it, but I also think that's part of the tradition of Star Trek. And I think the best writing sometimes when you think somebody's 100% wrong and they make an argument, you say, well, okay, well, I guess there's some value to that. I mean, I think our physician panelists can speak to this, but it's not exactly the same as triage. I mean, triage, I guess, is you're helping the patients that you can save versus the ones that that you can't. So it's not exactly that, but there are these kinds of decisions that are made all the time in medicine, I would assume, about who to treat, who gets treatment, who gets access to medication, who doesn't. So I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I will say I actually kind of came on to my larger role in Southern California right at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. And that really kind of forced us as sort of a society and certainly within medicine to do things that I had never seen before. We really had discussions with our bioethicists and amongst ourselves of how we were actually going to basically kind of say, okay, we're going to give a ventilator to this person because they're 35 and they, probably have a lot more life to go versus someone who is maybe 85, has a lot of chronic conditions. And that was really something that, although we definitely do sort of ration care in a sense within this country because we do not have a nationalized health service. And depending on what kind of healthcare plan you have, you certainly will probably get different treatment going to the county versus going maybe to, say, and just speaking for LA, like Cedars. But this was very, very different. And this really kind of, for me, sort of changed the way that I sort of looked at medicine. And really, I think for a whole generation of physicians, people who are in training and maybe those who are kind of slightly earlier in their career, really made us think about what it means to actually care for patients, what their quote value is, and who is going to determine that. We're also living through a time now where there is absolute tumult coming from Washington, D.C. in terms of the CDC and various other types of healthcare related facilities and sort of, unfortunately, a decimation of public health. And really kind of saying, almost in a sense, like, well, if you're going to survive this, disease, whether it's measles or COVID or whatever, you'll just survive it. And if you don't, well, okay, we're not going to vaccinate you. We're not going to make sure that you have, the treatment that you need. And it's become a lot more of a survival of the fittest quote. And that really kind of has ramped up since the start of COVID to now. And unfortunately, some of the folks who are in charge of our national healthcare facilities really buy into a very big part of this sort of a eugenics outlook. And I will tell you, as a physician, it is scary. And it is also very, very challenging when you're seeing patients on a daily basis to try to explain to them, I know that you're being told this by the CDC, but unfortunately, they have been compromised. There's no other way to put it. And
Right.
Trying to be that person who can give some rational explanation to things, but also, try to really meet people where they are in terms of some people are MAHA, as they call themselves, and trying to really help them to understand, yes, we all want to make America healthy again, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to get vaccinated. That doesn't mean you're going to consume raw milk. Those are things in the opposite direction. So, the past 5 or 6 years have been very interesting ones in medicine. And I really think, unfortunately, it kind of brought us closer to sort of an idea of rationing care and eugenics, much more so than in the 25 years or so that I've been in medicine.
Yeah.
So, interesting times.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, it's amazing. Like, you guys just answered a whole bunch of stuff that I really, which is great because that I really wanted to get to. I wanted to take us back. I wonder if you guys see from 25 years ago. Okay, let me back up. One of the aspects that I loved about this actual episode was, Bob, for your performance for the doctor. The doctor really goes on this sort of journey, and it's really nuanced, because he starts out very sort of naive about like, well, I'm gonna fix it, and we just fix it, and then gets faced with consequences by just acting sort of rashly, and he becomes a little bit more aware of the sacrifices that might be involved for people to make change, and the risks that might be involved, and I feel like that sort of mirrors our society a little bit, in how we're going to march about it, and we're going to march, and we're going to change, and then we get hit.
Certainly proceeding with change without really thinking the consequences through. It's a terrific point, and it is something. And I definitely saw an analogy between the allocator, played by the wonderful late Larry Drake, who was just great, still likable somehow.
Oh, so great. And Greg Itzin, who also passed away, who's one of my favorite actors.
Wonderful,
was a buddy of mine. Yeah.
And mine as well. It was great. I'd known him for years at that point that we worked together, and admired his work, so especially in 24. But what was interesting on the rewatch is that the doctor does actually violate his Hippocratic oath. He has tremendous guilt about it. He has that wonderful final scene with Seven where he asks her to check his matrix to see if there's anything damaged, or perhaps more importantly, if he's done any more permanent damage that will affect his ongoing performance. I thought all of that was great. At the beginning, the very Hippocratic oath that he swears forces him to participate immediately as soon as he sees someone injured and suffering. So that bookending of the oath drives me to give medical care, even though I've been kidnapped, even though I don't approve of these circumstances that I'm about to discover. I am compelled to provide care. But then at the end, he violates his own oath for the sake of the collective, as Seven points out. But he has tremendous regret about his own behavior, even though there was no alternative. What do you think of that, Ken?
I was very struck by that because, obviously
you wrote it,
invented the story, and then did a rewrite on the script and all of that. But I had no recollection of writing it. And, when I think back on Star Trek, what I often think about was how difficult it was for us sometimes, because in the Roddenberry vision of the future, these are very evolved characters who always make ethical decisions, don't have prejudices, don't see color, don't see species, none of that stuff. And I was really struck that we were really able to go there with the doctor and show him making choices that were really, ethically questionable. And of course, part of the doctor's journey, as it was for Seven and for Data and in TNG, is learning to become human as he becomes more and more human. And I guess that, we probably were allowed, let's say, to do this by Rick Berman because it was part of the doctor's evolution to becoming more human, which meant that he had to wrestle with the fact that even though his intention was to save as many people as he could, in order to do that, he literally threatens the life of somebody. And I was struck, like, I didn't remember that. And I was like, wow, we really went there with the character, and you were so great doing it. And so it was absolutely the thing that stood out to me the most about the episode. I mean, I remembered what the story was going to be, and I knew they rationed healthcare and that he was going to fix it in some way. But that part of it was a surprise to me. I'm sorry, my computer keeps dinging. I don't know why.
Oh, you're good.
So yeah.
I just want to chime in and say one of the great things about being part of the Star Trek franchise is the opportunity it gives us to meet people who watch Star Trek and enjoy Star Trek in all walks of life. This episode and other medical ethics episodes we did, like Critical Care, where the doctor has to decide whether or not to use a treatment that was discovered through torturing people. In other words, this great medical discovery had been made using ethically horrible ways to achieve the knowledge. So does that taint the knowledge, or does a medical discovery exist separate and apart from how you make the discovery? Very much like, there was the sort of Dr. Mengele episode that the wonderful David Clennon playing the evil Chel Mozet, great name. Anyway, because of doing episodes like this, I've actually sat at a panel at Yale Medical School with doctors like Dr. Hudson discussing medical ethics, at least in the context of Star Trek storytelling, but still how it makes those issues more accessible to a layperson in society, how it generates discussion, and how, sadly, sometimes it even comes to pass, as it is in our present political and cultural moment. Some of those issues just nag and don't go away. But the fact that I get to be put in the company of people like Dr. Hudson, people in space science and exploration and all that, simply because I'm an actor who worked on Star Trek, is the secret benefit. It's also the reason we're talking today. The Hollywood Food Coalition is a wonderful organization that had the brilliant idea that you could reclaim food from movie and television sets, good food, and distribute immediately to people in need. So I encourage everyone who's watching to hit that QR code. Don't forget why we're talking today, especially if you're enjoying our conversation. But even if you aren't, please make a donation to the Hollywood Food Coalition.
Thank you.
You're here.
Yes, absolutely. I wanted to ask you because, and Dr. Hudson, I think I'd ask you to start off with this, because what you guys were just talking about is that we're looking at systemic issues, right? The doctor, in a science fiction show, we can distill it down to one man can make a difference. One person can do this thing. And the doctor was in a position to take a really drastic action, right, to affect change. But in the real world, when we're looking at systemic issues like this, when we're stirred, how can people affect this change? What type of change do you see that people can make?
Yeah, I mean, I will say this, even as an individual physician, every interaction that I have with my patients is an opportunity to do some sort of a change. There are sometimes, as a physician, you feel like it is a Sisyphean task. Every day you see people come in to see you. 15 years ago, if I offered a flu vaccine, people were like, sure, yeah. Now they're like, no, I don't think I want it. So it's really kind of taking that time to sort of talk with people about, why this vaccine is helpful, why it's not going to harm you. So there's that sort of change that you can definitely make. I will say I'm very, very proud of all of the American medical societies. They have really all stuck together and said, you know what, no matter what kind of misinformation or disinformation is coming out, we're going to stand up for our patients. And yes, vaccines are helpful. Yes, you should follow this vaccine schedule. It's made a big difference in terms of us as individual physicians feeling supported, because quite frankly, the CDC had sort of been the gold standard throughout the entire world for decades. I remember when I was younger, I really wanted to work for the CDC. It just seemed like the coolest job ever. And it's sad to see that we've kind of moved away from that, but there's hope that it won't always stay like that. And the most important thing is that as a group, physicians have really rallied around each other to support each other. And kind of sometimes we get together and we talk about the challenges that we face when we're in the exam room. And what I have found really is that I can make a difference each day, each patient I see. It's a little bit of a change, but it's what all of us as physicians try to do every day anyway. But those small changes do definitely add up. The more folks you can get to talk to, sometimes they can talk to their friends, and it's sort of a community-led, really kind of layperson-led change that can happen, because there's nobody stronger to advocate for whatever medical intervention than your friend, your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, that they're going to hold a lot more weight than, a physician who maybe you see once or twice a year. But that change does have to start with us. And I will say that as a group, physicians are fairly progressive. I think people would be surprised at exactly how many of us would actually prefer to have a national health system. And it's definitely something for the younger folks that we're seeing even more and more of that. I'm a proud member of Generation X. I'm very proud of my millennial and my Gen Z colleagues who are just really speaking up and speaking out. And it makes me proud.
I think what Dr. Hudson says is great, and it gives me hope, especially about young people in the medical profession. My daughter is an RN who's studying to get her DNP, and so she's a healthcare provider as well. And I know some of the struggles that she goes through. And I think things like vaccines, this is very important to me. The other thing that the episode really touches on, though, is just basic access to care. Right, because there's a whole group of people in this story that don't really have access to care, or they have the worst possible care that is available. And I think that this is the really, for me, like the crux of it. I mean, I'm a very lucky person. I have incredible health insurance theoretically through the Writers Guild and the Directors Guild, but for my wife, sometimes it's almost a full-time job chasing down reimbursements from insurance companies and being told that, well, we can't get the medication that the doctor says we should have because some insurance provider or middleman says that, the insurance won't pay for it. My wife and I, and I'm sure our listeners go through this experience, and people who aren't as lucky as we are to have this great health insurance. We had a primary care physician for many years who retired. My wife found a new doctor that she thought was terrific. A year and a half into being with this new doctor, she gets a letter from the new doctor that the doctor is joining a concierge health practice, and for $100,000 a year, she could have just the best possible care available. She could get level blue, like on critical care. She could get she could get any doctor on the phone anytime she wanted. She would have access to everything. So if you're incredibly wealthy, by the way, we did not avail ourselves of that opportunity. I'm saying, so I often find myself thinking, like, we are very lucky people who have nominally excellent health insurance, but so many people either don't have any health insurance at all, or now, because of what's just happened in Congress or not happened, people's healthcare costs are, skyrocketing again. And obviously it's systemic and it's complicated. And to go back to your question, I don't know what any one person can do about it. What I would say is, like, we could vote. We could vote for people who want to change this and not keep putting people in power who seem to want to take this away from us.
Yeah. And I'd like to point out that healthcare was privatized during the Reagan administration. I mean, there were hints of it before, going back, I know, to Nixon, but really the deregulation of the Reagan administration sort of was the beginning of the problem that we're now discussing. In my opinion, I have had the same. I have very good healthcare. I was treated by a doctor where the facility wasn't covered. So yes, I could go see the doctor. He could authorize a treatment, but unfortunately I couldn't get the treatment because the facility wasn't covered. So all of this, and that's been rectified 2 years later. I never recovered the facility fees, which were significant, way more than the doctors, but it's this catch-22. Let's exhaust the people that are trying to get reimbursed, even though they have the coverage, even though they're entitled to the reimbursement. Let's put them through 7 stages and hope they give up at stage 6, trying to get their money back. But I'd like to ask, I never got to ask Ken this question because he joined Voyager not at the very beginning. You came in at like season 3, Ken?
No. You're just misremembering, Bob. I was there from the beginning. That's okay. What you might be remembering is that there was after season 5, I left very briefly and then I came back. So maybe you're just, it's a long time ago. But I came in while the pilot was being shot as part of a very small writing staff that was basically Jerry Taylor and Brandon Braga and myself for the first season.
But you were not there for the conceptualizing of the Bible.
No, I was not. No, that's absolutely correct. Jerry.
All right.
Jerry,
well, then my question, I apologize for not remembering.
Okay.
You were I don't think my eyes registered anyone under 25 at that time. But I've always had this feeling about my character that because Voyager was conceived during the great healthcare debate of the first Clinton administration, that my character was in many ways, the comic side of my character was a satire of managed healthcare. It was like you were supposed to fear the automated, government involved, even though Starfleet is different from a government. But the idea that you could have a computer generated, AI healthcare provider was pushing buttons very early on. That healthcare will be rationed, that the character will have no empathy, no personal involvement in your treatment. And that was one of the fun things about it. The character eventually became quite human-like and became more admirable or heroic, or however you want to apply the Star Trek officer terms toward him. But early on, his emotional subroutines that were designed to make him interface with you were mostly focused on himself. He was a narcissist. More concerned with his feelings being hurt by you for treating him like a machine. But still, we were somehow capturing the public's anxiety at that moment for what this next stage would be like if we were dealing no longer with the family doctor, but with an HMO, and somebody was telling your doctor that he could only spend 4.5 minutes with you, or 6.5 minutes, or whatever. All of those anxieties, I think, I was an embodiment of early on. Does anyone?
I think that's right. I mean, I can't, recall a specific instance of discussing it, but it feels very much Michael Pillar's probably Michael Pillar's conception of the character, at least in part. I mean, certainly part of it was to create another character a la Data who could start in one place and really grow over time and learn what it means to be human. But yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right. 25 years ago, we were having more discussions about HMOs and those kinds of things, and whether or not you could see the doctor that you actually wanted, and that your doctor was very impersonal and all of that kind of thing. So I'm absolutely certain that you're correct, that that was part of the conception of the character, although I did not create the character. I had the pleasure of writing many pithy lines of dialogue for you that you would call me and try to improve. But yes.
Oh, may I also say that correct. In the episode we just watched, my favorite wild card moment was when Janeway is trying to trace what happened to the doctor, and she takes Tuvok's hand and says, "I already have a man." Yes. I loved that moment.
That was great, and all the reactions from the guys on the bridge, and Tim's deadpan in that moment is really great. I mean, there's a lot of humor in that episode. The other thing that struck me was how Janeway seemed a little bit blasé to me. Oh, somebody stole the doctor. Let's go find him. Like, she didn't seem overly concerned that anything bad was going to happen to him. Another great actor, John Kassir, who played the bad guy who had stolen you. And forgive me, I'm going to forget the actor's name, but there's a great little cameo. He's a wonderful actor that was on Parks and Rec for years, Jerry on Parks and Rec, who plays the jilted husband whose wife has left him, and he's just great. And so many. I mean, just to talk a little bit about the fun of the episode, I think it was really it was very well cast episode, and it was. I really enjoyed the humor of the B story. Our challenge was always, there were certain kinds of episodes that we did, and one of them would be an away team, or in this case, somebody completely on their own. And so you've got one story with the character who's stuck on a planet or on a mission, and then another story going on the ship. And that was the way you had to kind of balance the show. And I was struck that we found some really fun some real fun in that B story of tracking the doctor down. That they kind of had to go on a wild goose chase. And I'm sure what that was us sitting in a room going, well, if they find him right away, the story's over. And they're the most powerful starship in the world. So of course they can find him easy. All they got to do is scan. So, well, what if there's a con artist character who keeps sending them down, the primrose path in the wrong direction? Wouldn't that be fun? And we probably were coming up with all of these things. And the other thing I loved, of course, I remember it's so fun to watch these episodes, and after many years, and I honestly I just don't remember them, and so. I remember watching the scene with Neelix where he's walking with Janeway in the corridor, and he's coming at the beginning of the episode, and he's saying to her, I feel really guilty because that guy got sick on some food that I made, and maybe I made him sick. And Janeway reassures him that, of course, this guy was a thief before Neelix ever fed him some bad food. And I remember thinking, because we used to do this once in a while, like an episode would come in a little bit short and we'd have to write an extra scene. And I remember thinking when I'm watching, I was thinking like, I wonder if that was like an extra scene we wrote because it was a minute and a half short, because it was kind of a cute scene with Janeway and Neelix, but it didn't seem like it had much to do with the episode. And then I got to the end and it has this great payoff where Neelix also, intentionally makes the guy sick. And I thought that was really funny. And I really, I really enjoyed it a lot. It was delightful.
And the irony is that he does exactly the same thing the doctor does.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the thematic thing. Like, are you going to make somebody sick to make them better? Or are you going to, So
one other side note and then I promise I'll stop after this, but I think it's an important one. In rewatching the show, I saw that it was directed by Terry Windell, one of our directors, who I became quite a good friend with and saw him the years after Voyager. And sadly, Terry died way too young of, I believe, a heart attack. So somehow that, having directed this particular episode and with all the issues that the other message that gives to me is that in addition to all of these other issues about the obstacles we face trying to get healthcare in a society where it's managed and we may not be able to afford care, there's the other issue that we have to watch out for ourselves, that we have to pay attention as we get older and make sure we see people like Dr. Hudson and care for our health. Even though we have to fight, to get reimbursed, we have to take care of ourselves so that we have, because he was way too young and way too talented to be lost in his early 50s, which I believe it was. So that was yet another issue that has nothing to do with the story, but that resonated with me because he was a friend.
It does. I think it has everything to do with this story as we look at it, because like you said, I mean, getting access to maintaining, respecting like our own persons, our personal health. Really quickly before we have to wrap up, I wanted to just ask Dr. Hudson, I want to start with you, where you're seeing like 25 years ago when this episode was written versus now, what are the main sort of healthcare inequalities that you're seeing now? Is it happening so much more in the practicing, in the access, or, what are you seeing?
Yeah, actually, it's interesting. I graduated from medical school about 25 years ago. So sort of perfect timing. That was like the start of my training to sort of now. I think there are a lot of issues that were there in the year 2000 that are still here in 2026, from the different way that women can be treated, the different way that Black women can be treated. These are all things that are definitely still real and still there. Interestingly enough, actually, I know there's been a lot of fear around AI. I will tell you, in my own practice, we actually use AI. I have an AI-enabled scribe that's on my phone. Patient obviously has to give you permission to use it, and you kind of, turn it on, and it allows me to actually sit and look at the patient. And this will actually generate, obviously I have to look at it later and I have to edit it, but it actually really helps to ensure that I'm able to have a little bit more one-on-one time with the patients, because no matter what system you work in, unless you're working for a concierge and charging people $100K a year, you have, between 10 to 20 minutes with each patient. So that is something that maybe I definitely wouldn't have seen it if you had talked to me when I was a resident and said, hey, you're going to be putting your phone down and it's going to be listening and, kind of helping you to create your note. I would have said, wow, that sounds really nice, but is that really going to happen? So that's interesting. But I think it also sort of speaks to a larger sort of variation in care, because I work for an organization that is very integrated. It's about the closest you're going to get to sort of national healthcare in this country, the way that we are now. Doctors, we don't have to ask for approval to do tests. The patients don't get run through all these hoops for all of that. But I also know that what I am experiencing and what the care I'm able to give is very, very different. I've worked in other places that were certainly not as sort of resource rich. I'm positive at some of the county facilities that, especially in some of the more rural areas, the doctors there don't have an AI scribe on their phone that's going to be able to listen. And it really changes the kind of care that you're able to give, because you just don't have the ability to give the patient that one-on-one attention. Speaking of, I just want to kind of wrap in sort of talking about making sure that you take care of yourself. I think that is key. One of the very few tenets of the Maha movement that I actually do agree with is that we do have a responsibility to make sure that we are caring for ourselves the best way that we possibly can. However, where it sort of misses the mark on a lot of different points, but is making sure that there's access to care. Big difference from the year 2000 to the year 2025 is there are just not enough healthcare professionals to go around. And this is not a shock. When I was in med school in the late 90s, I remember them saying, when we get to 2025, 2030, when a lot of the boomers are older and the other generations, there's just not as many of us, there's going to be a lack of folks who are going to be able to give care. And that was without seeing COVID. COVID really, a lot of healthcare professionals, if they could retire, they did. We lost a lot of different people. And quite frankly, also people died. We lost 1 million Americans. We don't talk about it enough, but we did. And I think that is the one thing that is going to create the most issues moving forward, because there just aren't enough healthcare professionals to take care of the people who need all of this help. And that is going to lead to bad outcomes. It's going to lead to people who, may have subtle signs of heart disease that are missed, and they're dying much, much too young.
Thank you for that. I mean, I think that's an answer is one of those. It's an answer to one of the questions we asked earlier about how dealing with systemic change, and and then the doctor said in the episode, it's you have to do what what you have to do, what I must do. The doctor had to ask myself what needs to be done and what I must do to affect this change. And I think that's a personal thing. If we have more people who are interested in going into these fields, it will be really helpful, especially if you want to affect some change. I think that one of the great missions, one of the other missions of the Hollywood Food Coalition is they also provide people with healthcare and access to healthcare. And that's this organization is so cool because it does more than just simply feeds people. It takes a very holistic approach to trying to help other human beings. There's mental care, there's dental care, there's medical care. So if everybody could please remember, donate www.givebutter.com /Trek Talks, or scan that QR code that's right on your screen, or text Trek, all caps, to 53555. You all, this panel has just been amazing. It's a dream of mine to be a fan of this show, and I feel very honored and blessed to be in situations where I get to have conversations like this with you people who gave me so much and added so much to my life. So thank you very, very much for your time personally, and thank you for your time for this cause. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. It was really a pleasure. It was great to meet you both, and see you, Bob, of course. And I just reiterate: donate, donate, donate. And it was a pleasure. It's a great cause and a great organization.
And I'd like to add my thanks, Dr. Hudson. It's always a pleasure to listen to a real doctor. That's what I do at home all the time. And Ken, it's great to see you, and thank you, Tamia. Actually, I'd like to shout out to Ken as one of those wonderful writers and directors I work with on Star Trek who continues to hire me after Star Trek is over.
That's right. Bob has been on a bunch of shows with me, and hopefully there's more of that in the future. Three different countries at least we've worked in together. Bob.
Absolutely. And so and that's a rare quality when you have a friend that you've worked with who continues to think of you, especially in our business, which is always hurtling forward and not usually looking back.
Yeah. And I just want to say thank you so much. This was so cool to watch the two of you kind of talk and reminisce. I'm geeking out over here. I'm going to tell, I went to an engineering undergrad, so all of my friends are going to be super jealous, and I'm going to tell them all about it. So thank you. Wonderful.
Pleasure.
Thanks everybody out there for watching and listening and donate. And we love you all.
Hey, so we're back. Okay, what'd you think? I told you guys it was good.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to point out is that when we thought about this panel, there was only one person that was supposed to moderate this panel. There was nobody else. The only person that was supposed to moderate this panel was Tamia. And I wasn't the one that said that. It was everybody else. You know, they were like, well, this is Tamia's panel. It was always Tamia's panel. And then we would fill it with whoever. You know, it was always that, because we knew that no one was going to be able to handle it the way she would handle it. And when we think of Trek Talks, when we think of something precious to us, it's always got to be handled by Tamia. You know, I think I'm saying that correctly.
Aww.
You know, it's just that when stuff has to be handled preciously, you know, when we have to make sure it's done right, it's always, and I'm not saying it's me that goes, oh, we got to have to, no, it's never that. I'm always doing something else. And then they're like, well, just tell Tamia this is what we came up for her, came up with. So I wanted to make sure people understood that. Yeah.
That is so sweet. I like, now, if y'all could see, I'm literally actually blushing.
She really is. Her cheeks are just as rosy.
I know, right? Oh, thank you. That's kind. That's kind.
Yeah.
Well, I felt honored to do this panel for sure, because it's such an important topic, because it's still relevant, and and it was a great episode. It was a really good episode. It's not just like this episode had a great topic and like, oh, that fits in with Hofoco. Like, it's a really good episode.
Yeah. I love that everybody went back and watched it the night before, and they were like, wow, I forgot how good this episode was.
Right?
Yeah, it's really good. It really is, yeah.
It's a quintessential Star Trek episode as well. So. Yeah. It's a very Trek episode, and it's like this Trek is the only show that could have like done that story.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And done it justice. And I loved. They just brought up so many good points. I love the fact that Dr. Hudson was able to break stuff down for us in real life. Mm-hmm. It's just why I really wanted to ask her, get to that. She's just amazing that she takes complex ideas and issues and really distills them in a very understandable, clear way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. She makes you feel like you, I had a thought. So it's those doctors who you go to and she doesn't make you feel like, oh, I got to give you I'm going to give you this diagnosis and then leave. She's that kind of doctor that says, okay, let's sit down and let's talk about this, because this is what's going to happen. That's how I feel when I listen to her. Yeah. Like, I know I'm going to get it all. I'm going to understand it all. And she's going to take the time and care to make sure I understand it, You know, am I saying that correctly? I think
Yeah,
so. Yeah.
absolutely.
That's how she makes me feel when I listen to her. Because I read those titles and I'm already like, oh boy.
I know, right?
Am I going to understand
really
anything that's coming out of
intimidating.
her mouth?
Right. Super intimidating.
Yeah. But she's definitely not that person.
You know, she's definitely a really skilled communicator.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's so key.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I really enjoyed this panel, and I had a
So
good
did I.
time with it.
Yep.
And, you know, like we said before, like, I just want to remind people that, again, that, you know, this was in service of something far greater than ourselves. So, Yvette, you want to tell people about that part?
Sure. Thanks to you, Trek Talks 5 raised over $86,000 to support the Hollywood Food Coalition. Thank you so much. If you missed this year's telethon, you can catch the replay at trektalks.net, and donations are still open. You can help push the total even higher by visiting the link in our show notes or texting TREK, TREK, to 53555.
You got that, all those fives in there.
my grandmother was so, you got to play that number.
That's right. So I want to thank everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed the panel. I hope you'll go back and check out the rest of the Trek Talks if you missed it, or even if you got to see it, go back and watch it again, like I did just the other day.
Or watch the older ones. They're still good too.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so many good panels. And you know, during pandemic time, everybody was available. So
yeah, they were.
Nobody was working. They were looking for things to do.
It's for sure.
So, so it was awesome. And now, Yvette, before I keep rambling on, do you want to just let the folks know all the good things Sci-Fi Sister related?
I sure do. Thanks for listening to the Sci-Fi Sisters podcast. During the 60th anniversary of Star Trek, we're honored to continue celebrating the franchise we love and to have been named 2025 Best All-Around Star Trek Podcast by Trek Movie. Thank you. Join us on Patreon at patreon.com/Sci-Fi Sisters and be part of the mothership. Join the conversation in the Sci-Fi Sisters Book Club on Facebook. Watch our interviews, live shows, and our infamous Top 10 series on YouTube, Sci-Fi Sisters, Inc. The Trek Geeks Network's presenting sponsor is Fansets. Grab pins and memorabilia from your favorite franchises at fansets.com and use Trek Geeks, all caps, for 10% off. After listening to this episode, please rate us and write a review. We may just read it on an upcoming episode.
And of course, I've got to thank the baddest associate producers in all the galaxies and all the universes.
Sorry.
It's Karen Germera, Stephanie Baker, and Sailor Marge, and Chris Garris, our latest associate producer. Thank you. I was about to say thank you, ladies, but thank you all for joining, for, you know, all the support that you give us and for being such cool people. And that's it for us. Thanks for listening. And we love you guys. Peace, love, and hair grease.